Welcome back, everybody, to another deviously satisfying episode of Lockdown 23 in 1. That's right, today we're going to be jumping back into the courtroom to witness a woman get sentenced for the death of her own husband. And the way that it all went down, you ain't going to believe it. Like I said, this is possibly the most devious and satisfying story I've ever covered. So let's get right into it, ladies and gentlemen. If you enjoy all things lockup and crime related, then this is where you want to be. Hit that like, subscribe, notification bell before you leave. And check out my playlist with many more videos for you to start watching today. Now, before we get into the courtroom, per usual, I'd like to give a little breakdown onto why she's in there. Linda Sturmer was found guilty on 2 counts of murder and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Sturmer, 60 years old, was convicted of dousing her husband Todd Sturmer in gasoline and lighting him on fire shortly after he had discovered she was having an affair. Sturmer then ran him over with a van while he was trying to escape the scene. Can you imagine that? She doused him with gasoline, lit him on fire. That means he probably ran out the house on flames. She panics, but not because she wants to save his life, but because she needs to finish a job. She grabs the minivan keys that he probably bought and ran him over. And y'all know chances are most people with a minivan, they have kids. And the kids in this story, unfortunately, have a huge factor to play. Todd died in the yard of their home. He was 42 years old, and he was probably upkeeping that yard every weekend. Just like I do mine, right? Man, I can't even imagine stuff like this unfolding. I think too deep into these things, right? I really paint the pictures for myself. Anyway, the Sturmers, 2 adult children and a nephew, who the couple also raised, testified against her during the trial. One of her sons, Trevor Sturmer, said his parents had an argument after his father found out that his mother was cheating on him. He said that this was the worst argument he had ever witnessed. Trevor later testified that his mother, whom he no longer refers to as mother, a scandalous relationship ended with all this. Life in prison and completely broken home. And if I were to guess, she probably ain't even with the guy that she was cheating on with. But like I said, Trevor later testified that his mother had instructed her children to lie for her to cover up the murder. She wanted to downplay the severeness of the fight, Trevor testified. It was severe. It was the most heated argument I heard from my parents. And second of all, she told us to tell the insurance agency that it was a chimney fire. Wow, unreal. She wanted that money to start a new life with her new man. She thought she had it all planned out until he came running out the house still alive. I promise you it gets crazier, man. Listen to this. Sturmer was previously convicted of her husband's killing in 2010 and sentenced to life in prison, but was released in 2018 after her defense team successfully appealed her initial conviction based on misconduct by the previous prosecutor. But guess what? There's a new prosecutor in town, and he ain't letting this jank slide, no sir. It continues saying Sturmer has long denied killing her husband on purpose, arguing that she ran him over with the van by accident while trying to escape the fire to get help. Her defense team reportedly argued that her fire started from one of her husband's oil lamps. Wow, now she's blaming the whole fire on him. Dolly's down there going crazy. Someone must be at the door. Eventually, Sturmer was found guilty once again after just 7 hours of deliberation by the jury and sentenced to life in prison for the second time. I can almost guarantee she ain't gonna be able to get out of this one. And she don't deserve to be, because I strongly believe 100% that she meant to kill this man. And now it's time for the satisfying part of the episode, witnessing this diabolical monster getting smoked to life.
And Mr. Mueller, nothing?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Sturmer, anything you wish to say?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. What's on her mind today? That's a squeaky chair.
I came to this court filled with hope. Hope that the questions which had been unanswered for so long would finally be answered. That this would finally be proven to all that the tragedy that took Todd from our lives was an accident and not a crime. Today, while I stand before you, innocent and wrongfully convicted, I am prepared for the battle ahead. My husband, my family, my daughters, friends, and legal team remain confident that this conviction will also be overturned.
Thank you. Ms. Seiderbean or Mr. Player?
Wow, I leave room for anomalies here and there, but I can't go for magically the same night that he catches you cheating. He gets lit up in flames and somehow gets ran over by your minivan as he's trying to escape the flames? Final Destination's only for the movies, ma'am. The jury didn't believe it and I don't either. But now we're going to hear from the prosecution. They get the last say-so before the sentencing, and typically it's like a debriefing for the people, explain why she's in there and why she deserves all this time.
Ms. Seiderbean or Mr. Player?
Thank you, Your Honor. This family has waited years for their questions to also be answered. And the questions have been answered, Your Honor, by two different juries. We have had 24 people that have now said unanimously that Linda Sturmer killed Todd.
Yep, keep in mind, like I said, she was already tried for it once, found guilty by a jury, so this is 2 times. I can't see her beating it again. She's done for, finite.
I had the pleasure of getting to know this family over the last several years, and it was ups and downs, let me tell you, because they didn't understand. They didn't understand why she was out. They didn't understand why we were going to trial a second time. They didn't understand why these pictures couldn't be up at trial. And they didn't understand why they had to listen to all the defendants' lies about their loved one the entire trial. And then we couldn't say anything. We couldn't say anything. Todd was portrayed in very unfavorable terms through Linda's words. And I promised the family that today was about Todd. That's why these pictures are up here. It's to remember the Todd that is with his children, loving his children, smiling, loving his grandmother, loving his family.
Defense didn't show none of that, did they? If I were to guess, it's because it's more along the lines of emotional evidence that could help persuade the jurors. They might have tried, they objected it and it was sustained or something, who knows. But either way, it should be allowed. It should show the good side of the man. They can't just keep painting the guy to be filth over and over again. He's dead. He can't speak on his own behalf. So someone has to speak about his great and, wonderful qualities. If I were to guess, the prosecution did it in their own kind of way. But man, oh man, I am loving to see justice served on this one.
That's the Todd that I got to hear about for all of these years that could not be portrayed to this court. It could not be portrayed to the media. And so that's what today is about. It is a celebration of Todd. Now that 2 juries have found her guilty, Your Honor, we understand we're not arguing for any particular sentence, as we know what the sentence is all going to be. We really just wanted to take this opportunity to be able to celebrate his life. His boys are remarkable. I've spent a lot of time with them. Their pain is deep. Their pain is deep. The wives that I got to meet of the boys are so supportive and loving and strong, but yet they're supporting of broken men who lost a mother and a father, and who are now then in this role of raising their own families, finding their own way in life, and raising their children without the help of their father. And the person they used to call Mom, now they call Linda. I just asked this court to remember in its elocution if it would also talk about Todd and the things that they've heard today, because I think that's what the family would like. Thank you, Your Honor.
Wonderful piece, prosecutor.
Well, to the family members, first off, I do hope that you have the opportunity for closure, celebrate as much as you can celebrate something like this, but I hope that you do spend this weekend, as you talked about, honoring Todd. And again, hopefully today will bring you some level of closure. Ms. Sturmer, you've now had the process that was due to you. You had an extraordinary team of attorneys working on your behalf, not for months, but for years. With ardor, they filed motions and pursued what appeared to be every avenue on your behalf. They brought in experts to undermine and contradict the testimony of the prosecution's experts and to bolster the defense theory of the case. You also had this time around a new prosecution team in this trial and in the years leading up to this trial From this court's perspective, this prosecution was diligent, thorough, and zealous, but they also played by the rules and worked under the mantra of seeking justice, not just a conviction. All this to say that I am confident, Ms. Sturmer, that you received a fair trial.
Well said, Your Honor. Man, this courtroom is screaming diligence. Not only has she been convicted by 2 different juries, but also the prosecution team is totally different. I mentioned that in the intro. She's had double, triple kind of chances by numerous types of different individuals. And they all come out with the same thing, guilty. Even with the best paid attorneys, if I were to guess, in the area. Battling tooth and nail. Look, you gotta face it. It's over.
All this to say that I am confident, Ms. Sturmer, that you received a fair trial. Murder is by its nature a monstrous deed, but the one you've committed is even more gruesome than most. You lit your husband on fire and burned him alive. When he made it out of the house and you had a chance to reconsider your actions, you instead doubled down and ran him over with your car.
Wow.
I cannot fathom the suffering he endured in his last moments of life. And I cannot fathom the damage you've inflicted on Todd's family, his mother, his siblings, now your grown children, his grown children. You lured them out of the house using one of your many labyrinths of lies. They went to the mall and movie at your request, thinking you'd be discussing divorce details with your victim. And you didn't even allow them to say their customary goodbye to their father before you murdered him.
Wow.
Now they live with not only the murder of their father at the hands of their mother, but the fact that had you not convinced them to leave, you may not have had your window, or at least on that date, to commit your heinous acts. Their testimony was clearly difficult, but it was compelling. Your sons displayed on the stand the courage and strength of character often associated with those who have endured significant trauma. I use the word sons loosely as they clearly do not recognize you as their mother anymore. Suffice it to say that if there was ever a list of all of the things parents should do on behalf of their children, murdering the other parent would not be on that list.
Definitely.
This court is to balance punishment, protection, deterrence, and rehabilitation where possible. I'm hopeful you will engage in programming when returned to the Department of Corrections, programming which may or may not provide some measure of rehabilitation, but only a sentence of life without the possibility of parole can protect others from you and deter others from committing like conduct. And only a sentence of life without the possibility of parole can properly punish you for the heinous acts you've committed in burning your husband alive and in leaving your children with that imprint forever. The sentence of the court is life without the possibility of parole. Credit is 3,367 days.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Like the prosecution said, that day was a celebration for old Todd, man. Justice was served, bro. Justice was served. Right, man? This is a tragic situation. My condolences go out to anybody involved with this one, especially the kids. Children. I apologize, Your Honorable Judge Boyd. But I'm out of here, ladies and gentlemen. I gotta go rest, man. I've been ripping and running. Just got back from DC, Virginia Beach, all kinds of places. Older kids been in camp for about a week, so I gotta go pick them up again here soon. A lot of ripping and running, but I got some collaborations in the making as well. Not to mention many more variations of lockup and crime-related content. So if you're new to the channel and enjoy, hit that like, subscribe, notification bell before you leave. And as always, until the next time, y'all be easy, be safe, and more importantly than anything, just get a divorce and stay free.